So here we go, 1968 Ford F-350 on the Lincoln Town Car chassis. We did the body swap, platformed two different vehicles together. Now in the last video, I will be the first to admit that I made a mistake. I thought that something was a problem, when in reality it wasn't a problem at all. Then I made it worse. Then I think I made it even worse. And then I just could not let that slide. And I spent a lot of time with it on the last video. In this video, I don't want to spend too much time on it. I want to fix it, I want to address it, I want to get it behind us, and then I want to start to move on to the paint process of this truck. And let me give you a clue. You see this? What we got going on right here? See you later. Let's get started.
And now, you're watching the also inevitable swag and drip that is from the Mugshot Merch channel of YouTube. Welcome to Bodie Vision.
Hey, so what is up and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me yet again on another video. Now really quickly before we get started, I just wanted to remind you the Slam Box shirts, two different designs on the site, link in the description below. Check that out after you watch this video. So what I want to do is I want to get right into it. We want to rework those fenders in a way that is going to make more sense. I'm going to go back to the original height, or just a little bit larger than the original height. I did a whole bunch of research, which I should have done before I made my first cut last time, realizing that the back is always a little bit lower, the front tires need to turn. That's just how it looks on these old trucks. So I want to go back how it should originally look, but I want to give it more of a factory style that matches the front a little bit. So what I want to do, get the old stuff cut off, draw up my new design, rebuild this fender, and then get it tacked on, body filled, primed, and then just move on with this entire thing. Alright, so let's get right into it, not waste any time. The first thing that I need to do is just cut off, get rid of the old stuff. By the time I was done reworking this 37 times, I think I had a total of 6 pieces, all types of welding that was going to require grinding and straightening out, and I just did not want to deal with that. So I thought, let's just start with a fresh piece. So the first thing that I'm marking out is my center point. That's not the center point of this panel. That's the actual center point of my wheel, because I want the arch to be centered on the wheel. I'm not super concerned where it lands within the actual service bed itself, as long as it's centered on the wheel. So the first thing that I'm doing is I establish my top line and my bottom line. Once I know those widths and I make them centered, I can then draw a connecting line. Now as you can see right here, I'm starting to weld this little round rod on there, and you can see that my shape did change a little bit. What I ended up doing is I rocked the backwards about 3 inches, and then the front backwards about 3 inches as well. And what that did, it made a tighter angle in the front and a wider angle in the back. And I wanted to add this round rod to give it a little bit of shape and a little bit of extra flair. And I put that rod on there before I made any cuts, just so that way my panel was going to be as strong as possible and have lesser of a chance of actually warping. Once that's all established and all good, I came back with my angle grinder to cut out the actual fender area itself. Then I just cleaned it up, and that is looking really nice. I mean, I just wanted to step back, take a look at it, and see if I was happy with it, and I was. So the next step is I need to tack it onto that service bed itself. I just went along with a few tacks, and then I'm kind of alternating, working in different areas, because I don't want the metal to get too hot to warp and or run away from me. So I'm just making all these little tacks, then I'm coming back and connecting some of the dots, working in little areas. Some of the areas that I'm skipping over, I then come back after a little while, just so that way, again, it does not get too hot. Then what I got to do is grind down some of those welds, do a little bit of body filler, then I come back with my epoxy primer. Once the epoxy primer is all set up, that panel disappeared. It's all one piece, all looking good, and I am definitely happy with it. So as you can see here, we have it more of a style that is going to match the front a little bit better. This back, we have a larger swoop. The front, we kind of have it die down. I also put this little round rod in there, filled it in with just a little bit of body filler just to smooth it over. Smoothed over the transition, and this is looking really good. Now that I pressure washed it, man, how much loose paint came off. What a what a satisfying thing to watch. So what I want to do, the rest of this loose paint needs to come off. Now with the paint job and the paint process of this vehicle, let me talk about it just a little bit, where my mind's at and what I'm thinking. Now, you know that I paint cars, you know that I can come out with some really good results. Well, I like to think that some of my paint jobs are really nice. I definitely can do it. Am I going to do a really nice paint job on this truck? I think it's going to be nice in the end, but it might not be what you would think that I should do. So let's talk about it. In reality, if I wanted to get this to a really nice show truck comparable to some of the paint jobs that you may have seen me do in the past, I'm talking about perfectly laser straight bodywork, no dents whatsoever, one color, glass clear coat on top, no orange peel whatsoever, just perfect, perfect, perfect. This truck, I'm not going to do that. I'm not interested in spending weeks and weeks and weeks doing metal work, doing body work, cutting out old rust, getting every single dent out, blocking pieces, and then let's say I were to get the body work perfect. You know, where do you stop? So if I were to get the body perfect and then we have this old window trim that looks pretty crappy, then I'd have to replace the trim. And the window itself is pretty old, so then I'd have to replace the windshield. And since the windshield is pretty old, this side glass, you know, some of this stuff is kind of old looking. It's a little bit delaminated, a little bit separated. It looks okay because it is a truck from the 60s, so it's acceptable. But if I was going to do like a full restoration, it would just be a rabbit hole that I'm not at all interested in getting into. So I'm still going to do a lot of things the correct way. For example, with the back right here, the first thing that I want to do, and I'm going to get started, I'm probably going to bring this all the way down to bare metal, which would be the first step in a really big restoration process. The reason I'm doing that is because I still want to do a good job, but I'm not going to get out every single dent. I'm not going to make it absolutely perfect, but I am going to give my paint job the best opportunity and the best ability to last as long as possible. So let's go ahead and bring this down to bare metal, then I will talk about some of my next steps. Alright, so as you can see, this primer, this is looking pretty good. Now this is actually a DTM epoxy primer. Now a DTM epoxy primer means direct to metal. That is the type of product that you are going to need to use if you bring something down to bare metal. And the reason why I went this far again is because I started to feather it out. It just took way too long, so I figured let me just blast everything all off completely, get it down to metal, and then we will have a decent foundation to hold on to. Again, this is not going to be a perfect show quality paint job, but I still want to do what I can do to make sure that I start with a good foundation, and you can't start off with a better foundation than bringing it down to metal, then doing your epoxy primer, then I will do my other primer on top of that before I start to do any body work. I don't know how much body work I am going to be doing. I have a couple of points that I wanted to make. This service bed is going to be removed from the chassis and everything for the final paint job because I'm obviously going to want to paint the cab all the way around as well as the bed all the way around. Now for convenience sake right now it's easy for me to just leave the bed on because I can move the cabin bed together. And number two, the second thing that I wanted to point out, I didn't even touch the cab at all. And the reason why I did that is because I don't ever want to get too far ahead of myself. If I were to bring everything down to bare metal and then just keep working on that tomorrow, start to bring any of that stuff down to bare metal that I want to bring down, by the time a few days comes around, this metal is going to start rusting, and I do not want that to happen. So a little rule of thumb that I have, I never take down more to bare metal than what I'm going to be able to prime that same day. So it's been a really successful day. Tomorrow we will start fresh and see what else we are going to do, and I'll see you then. Let's just get right into that next thing here. Good stuff. Alright, here we are the next morning. Let's turn the truck around so we can start working on the front end now that the bed's primed. Woohoo! And what do you think about that arch on the back? That fender looks a lot better now, right? Good stuff, man. All right, so let's get sanding on the front. I got to do a little bit of metal work, a little rust repair. Keep in mind, even though I'm not doing a perfect paint job like I mentioned a little bit ago, there are still a lot of things that I need to do to make this thing proper, and I'm going to do just that. Now that we have made some really good headway sanding this thing down, I've come to the realization that I am going to have to do some body work because there was old body filler in quite a lot of spots. I mean, keep in mind, from 1968, there is going to be some damage on this vehicle. So any of that old body filler that was just cracked, I do not want that to be under my new paint job, and it only makes sense for me to sand it out, get rid of it completely, do a little bit of metal work while I'm at it, and get some of those dents out. Now, I'm probably not going to block the entire thing just because there's going to be all little dents all over the place, which I would usually do on a typical paint job, but I'm gonna get out But at this point, I'm going to get out what I get out as I am working on it. So I am definitely going to be doing more body work than I thought because I can't just leave it alone. So the next thing that I want to get into, right on the front of the hood, that is just rusted out, completely rotted. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that out, replace it with some fresh metal, grind that down, do the body work, and let's just keep it rolling, man. So at this point, I wanted to pull the truck out, take a step back, reevaluate if we are going in the right direction, and I think we are. We're going in the direction that I want it to go. So that's it. I'll see you on the next one.